Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're right in time for press review. I have with me here Kevin Osido. He is a governance expert. Kevin, good morning and Happy New Year to you and your family.
Too,
it's good to see you.
And you too.
All right, so let's begin with the Standard newspaper. The Standard newspaper this morning, the biggest headline that they are running with is KNUT defies court on declares a strike, but also a few interesting pictures that have really dominated page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of how Kenyans decide to usher in New Year's. I can see it's the same thing on the Daily Nation. KNUT vows to defy court on strike plan. They demand four things rather. The delocalization. The union wants TSC to shelve that transfer of head teachers promotion. KNUT wants thousands of teachers who says it has attained higher education qualifications to be promoted to the next grade. Appraisals as well as training. Those are the four key things that KNUT is demanding for. As well as the pictures, as you can see, of how Kenyans ushered in the New Year in style. But first, let's begin with the Standard newspaper. Very general, Kenyans ushered 2019 with fireworks. Amazing pictures of how Kenyans decided to do so. I think one of my favorite pictures has to be the fireworks from the lift from UAP Plaza in Nairobi's Upper Hill. That was fantastic. And of course, London's eye during the New Year's fireworks was something else. I mean, Kevin, how did you usher in your 2019 and what are your personal hopes? Allow me to get a bit personal. What are your personal goals and hopes for 2019?
Well, thank you so much and Happy New Year. My personal hopes for 2019 are basically restoration. I am hoping that the way God said when I ushered in the New Year that He's going to restore whatever the evil one has taken. I am hopeful that that is going to come back. 2017, 2018, those two preceding years have not been very easy for many Kenyans. And I think for me as an individual and as a Kenyan, I am hoping that it's going to be a really happy New Year.
I love that. So for you, your 2019 is restoration.
Precisely.
I love that. Okay, so grab your papers and you can see page 2, 3, 4, 5, all those page covers of how Kenyans ushered in the New Year. But let me bring your attention to that other story, which is on page 8. KNUT defies court, declares strike. If you go to page 8 of the Standard newspaper, in case you also have your newspaper at home, you'll see that KNUT leaders have decided to go on with a strike, which starts today. And the thing is, Kevin, we keep on doing this. We keep on doing this. If it's not the teachers, it's the doctors. If it's not the doctors, it's the nurses. Do you think a time will come in Kenya when we will see, I think, the most selfless professions, teachers, nurses, doctors, given the sort of respect that they deserve within their area of work? Because if it's not them striking, it is the nurses, it is the teachers. It's always those three professions.
I think, Zinzi, one of the biggest words that I would pick from this is really consultation.
Right.
And beyond that, I don't believe that we have to wait until the last minute for us to begin raising concerns. And I think Mheshimiwa Sosion has been quite consistent on issues to do with teachers. This is not new. I remember, was it in 2002 actually, when the late Ambrose Adongo, the former KNUT Secretary General, called one of the biggest strikes in Kenya, either 2002 or 1997. Must be 1997 actually, precisely. And that strike brought in serious concerns around how teacher management, both by the Kenya National Union of Teachers and TSC, and indeed the Ministry of Labor and other parent ministries like Ministry of Education, were meant therefore to deal with issues of education and teachers training, among others. Within that also came in what is currently called the CBA, the Collective Bargaining Agreement, and it was the government committed, from my understanding, that they were going to ensure that they make follow-up on issues which were collectively agreed upon. Unfortunately, and this is why I think Mheshimiwa Sosion and his team have been consistent to be able to follow up on the CBA, and that the government has not been quite committed to most of those issues. And one of the challenges, I think, is because of the changes that take place within government ministries, in the sense that when we have a change of government, we also have a change of the person who sits at the helm of the Ministry of Education. And so sometimes there is failure of followership in terms of what was committed by the preceding office and then the succeeding person. And so I think that one of the key issues that I think we need to, that I believe we need to follow up is the role of a task force and or a mechanism that is going to bring in major stakeholders to be able to look at a monitoring and evaluation framework that then looks at what have we achieved within what period of time and what is pending. Because as it is right now, I'm just from sending some of my relatives back to the village because they are going back to school, and the concern is tutaenda shuleni kesho ama hatuendi, you know, and
that uncertainty.
Exactly, and in the midst of all these transport issues, and these are people who woke up at 3:30 to be at the bus station at 5 for the first Nissan to leave, and you can imagine the numbers of people who are there, and of course the uncertainty of what is this, what is happening. So my appeal is really to the government, both Ministry of Labor, Mheshimiwa Ukur Yatani has been here before, he's been a governor, he's been someone I believe that is well concerned with issues of education and of course the labor in this country. Court is a good thing. Court orders have been there, like again Mheshimiwa Sosion says, but then we wait to see how far this will go. I think that a stakeholder mechanism and a joint stakeholder framework of dealing with these issues need to be brought forward. But since this needs not just to be a threat mode, so that when teachers feel there is something amiss, then they issue a strike threat notice. It has to be a framework that then provides for mutual benefit, both by government, by parents and teachers, by schools, and indeed even by the Kenya National Union of Teachers and also Nancy Masharia's place, which is the TSC. I don't think it's also an opportunity for us to be able to wage war on each other. All of us are Kenyans. Our interest is for the benefit of our children in this country, and that interest has to also support His Excellency the President. I think that President Uhuru is committed to, if he is going to live by what he read on his New Year's message on free education and free secondary education, free primary and secondary education, then I think that the president needs to review.
Prioritize this.
Yes, this is something that really calls for the president's attention.
You know, at the end of the day, Kevin, what really, at the end of the day, it's the students who suffer the most. They're the biggest stakeholders. This is what Sosion says when it comes to defying the court. It says, and I quote, "There is no strike that has taken place in this country without court orders. They cannot stop employees from going on strike. We're going to start the biggest strike ever tomorrow." Now, still sticking on this on page 8, if you look at what they're asking for this time around, it has nothing to do with salary. It's the issue of promotion, delocalization, training, etc., the quality of education as well. But the other thing that I find a bit ironical, Kevin, is that with the new curriculum, which again already has its own mess. Even the head of state confessed and said, okay, there was a bit of confusion there. What I find ironical is that it's our parliament that is supposed to tick on the curriculum, giving a way forward. Your parliament resumes in Feb. Today is when the new curriculum is supposed to roll out. When you look at that, when you have the Ministry of Education saying 2nd January we're moving forward, but Parliament says it is illegal for you to move forward if we have not given a green light, they are resuming in Feb. There's that disconnect. There's that singing different songs from these two bodies of government who you think at the end of the day would be working together.
Yeah, there are people who are playing Kenyans, and indeed they are playing with the minds of Kenyans. Because again, Zinzi, and I think it's honorable for me to repeat this, that we don't have to wait until the last minute. Parliamentary calendar is something that is known worldwide. Kenyan calendar is known from when it is opened, state opening of the National Assembly and the Senate, joint parliament, you move on to budget issues. All these things, and we don't have to wait until 1 month when Parliament will be on recess for us to begin asking ourselves, when will they give a green light for our curriculum? That's one. Two, we have a huge institution, the KICD, Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development. Yeah?
There you go. Yes.
And I believe in the CEO, Dr. Joan, who sits at KICT, to be able to guide and provide technical support to government and institutions that relate to curriculum development in this country. I don't think that the person who sits there is someone who is not, who does not really understand the issues of education and curriculum development in this country. KICD needs to be given time and opportunity and the privilege that it has to guide on curriculum development issues. And I know that there are challenges that they have also faced, which then take us back to where we are right now in terms of the confusion. And it's quite surprising that even His Excellency the President admitted, and in his two biggest addresses that he's made, he's also brought up this issue. And the question that as a Kenyan and someone who is also interested in education and curriculum development was asking myself is, did we really have to wait until this moment? And whereas we know that there is a joint task force that has also been following up on this process, what have been the recommendations of this task force, and what are the timelines that they are working with? Schools are opening today, tomorrow. Parents are asking, we are asking ourselves, so which books are we buying? Are we buying the old ones? Are we buying the new ones? We moved on to a new education system, then you were told, no, hold it there, we are moving on this way. The people who are playing with Kenyans' minds need to sit back and think. They need to stop and think critically, so that we can move forward.
All right, later on in the show, we'll be talking about overcoming exam failure, a very critical conversation that we need to be having, how to go about it. That's why we're asking you this morning whether you think education is the key to success. On page 9 of the Standard newspaper this morning, another story that will probably grab your attention is the DPP's furious over the lawyer, Tom Ojenda's 89 million case, which has been suspended. We all know the controversy around this. He was arrested on Friday and he was released at 10 p.m. If my memory serves me right, today being a Wednesday, on Monday, he was released around 10 p.m. at night. And the thing is, the DPP, Kevin, says that the courts are undermining the war on corruption. The president himself came out and called out the court saying, why are you giving out bonds? Why are you giving out, despite the fact that it's a constitutional right, why are you giving out bonds to people who have been listed or alleged to commit crime when it comes to economic crime? But I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with the DPP? Do you feel as if the court is undermining the war on corruption?
I wouldn't say, well, it's hard for me to say whether I agree or not. But what I would say is a joint mechanism to work together. I am aware that there is a joint mechanism that these institutions, including court users committees, that even engage at the, the village levels, at the ward levels, so where we have major courts, if they are able to coordinate, to find a coordinating mechanism, so that then we know that when a file has already been forwarded by the DPP to DCI or vice versa, whoever is supposed to do the initial forwarding, let everybody be aware, including the Chief Justice, the courts, so that they know that, yes, Zinzi is going to be arrested on this date. These are the officers that we are going to send to arrest Zinzi. Zinzi is going to be arrested on these charges. And then you ask the court, do you have an issue? Do you have concerns to raise with this arrest? Do we have court orders? Do we have, so that then when this thing ultimately takes place, we don't see the same house fighting each other from the doors and the windows, because that is exactly what is happening. Kenya has to move forward, and for us to move forward, institutions must work together, and they must be seen to be working together.
Maraga came out and said that the courts will not be used as a scapegoat when it comes to calling for watertight evidence. And this is something that has also been highlighted on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Uhuru DPP accused judiciary of slowing down anti-graft war. That's the thing. Then again, would our politicians, would this whole mimic, this whole parade, this whole show of fighting corruption, is it just a way of also making the courts look bad when we decide to use them as a scapegoat and pointing fingers at them?
The president has to be sincere with Kenyans on this war, because I believe that Kenyans want to support His Excellency the President, and not just him, but indeed even the institutions, because all of us have an interest in Kenya, Kenya whose environment is safe to do business, for us to engage in our social, frameworks and all that. But would not be happy if the person who is supposed to be providing that guidance is even asking us, what do you want us to do? I have given the DPP work to do. I have asked the DCI to do his work. I have asked the judiciary to do its work. The president has the opportunity and the privilege of the presidency to summon, not just to call order for order rather, but to summon these institutions and these people. And there are lots of roundtables that have taken place. There is a report that was done, which I many times think that's probably why the AG, the former Attorney General, resigned, because that report, I have read the report, Zinzi, the report on a joint task force on corruption of 2016. And because I train on governance and transparency, accountability, therefore, is something that is really close to my heart and the hearts of the people that you work with. And if you read that report, it provides recommendations for each agency of government, each institution, including the role of the citizen, like you and I and our viewers who are watching us out there. The question then is, why are we not doing it? So that then we stop this issue of, blame game, in my view. If it is about corruption, and where we just moved on to this discussion after talking about the joint task force, so the joint framework for the ODPP, the DCI, and the judiciary, quite insurmountable recommendations that have been made. And I want to probably propose and recommend that as we move on to 2019, so that Kenyans can be able to actually see that there are people who are committed to the war on graft. Let's go back to those recommendations, because they are small things, very small little things that I believe would make a lot of sense to the eye of the citizen, but there are also big things that would really make this war on graft to be believable among the citizens. As it is right now, I think the president has also moved on to make it much more, inconveniencing to many people, because he is not as believable as Kenyans would want to think that the president is supposed to be on this war. And watching him on TV while he was in Mombasa, both for his two speeches, I think that is someone who is too full of talk shop, and I think that he now needs to, as we move on to 2019, sit back and ask for reports. Ask the DCI, I want the files, This is my country, they voted for me, very many people, I want to know what's going on with these cases. And you, Chief Justice Maraga, and the judiciary, what is happening? And I know that the president has also asked people when they're arrested and the court releases them, munataka nifanye nini?
Right.
There is a lot that the president can be able to do, including even looking at how we arrest people, because I don't believe that it has to be something that is, you are on the streets walking and then suddenly some 6 huge men and one lady come up and they arrest you. What sort of, sorry to say, nonsense is that? There has to be a believable mechanism that also does not make people want to look at this war as a war that is targeting certain individuals, because that is exactly what it is like. You saw LSK coming to support their own. And there are lots of judges that probably would be arrested today, tomorrow, and until this war is over. What sort of manner do we want to, to follow through with the war on graft? And
Kevin, that leads me to my next question. The expectations that we have as Kenyans, the expectations when it comes to politics in 2019. The reason why I say that is that on page 5 of the Daily Nation, Mudavadi criticizes Ruto's trip to Western. Ruto, the DP, had visited Western last month 3 times. Again, for him, raising a lot of eyebrows. Kevin, especially with the talks around succession politics and the handshake that we saw last year, what are your expectations for this country politically come 2019? You've already said one very well, President Uhuru Kenyatta being a bit more serious when it comes to his war on graft, showing that and calling for results. But what more do you, especially with the succession politics, what would you want to see in this 2019?
For politics, you just asked me when I walked in where I have been. 2017 was not very easy, and some of us decided to hibernate because of just the desire to have a very good Kenya, and then suddenly it crumbles down. Right. And you're thinking we've been doing this for over 53, 4, 5 years. Then we are suddenly there, and then this is how it goes. Institutions just begin to collapse, and nothing is working for a very good country like Kenya. One of the things that I am praying for is that politicians will allow Kenyans to build their country, because these are the people who are messing up this country, Zinzi. And if Kenyans are also not serious to just come out there and exercise national values and principles, Chapter 6 of our Constitution, Article 10, and one of them is patriotism, we must be able to begin to organize ourselves. Waswahili husema kutojipanga ni kupangwa. If we don't organize ourselves to reclaim back our motherland, which is a beautiful country that stands at the apex of the regional and economic, well, let me say, within this region, East and Central Africa, then the people that we are calling the politicians, who are also our relatives, and during weekends and holidays like this, they sit with you here, you are taking tea, and they are very angelic. But then you ask yourself, what really happens when you go back to the city and you're seated there and we are asking when a no is a no, why is the speaker saying it's the ayes and it was said there? And
billions of Kenyan shillings are lost in corruption.
So my desire for 2019 is that Kenyans will arise to reclaim back this country, and part of that is really accountability. Within our residential estates, let's organize ourselves to hold our MCAs to account. Those bad roads that we are posting on Twitter, yes, Twitter is one of those accountability mechanisms. It's a tool that we can be able to use. Let's write documents that we can refer to and go to those assemblies, because the law allows us to sit at the gallery and to listen to what is being discussed. Let's send our petitions to those assemblies, and then somehow politicians will feel that Kenyans are beginning to know and understand their rights, they'll start, in my view, to do the right
so
things.
Kenyans need to be more involved, public participation on this.
Yes.
All right, Kevin, the other thing is about the whole succession politics is last week, we saw David Murathe coming out and saying, listen, we don't owe the DP our ticket come 2022, and that will be left to the Mount Region bloc to decide who is going to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. As a governance expert, just help me understand this. If we are going to have a group of men and women who sit over tea and decide who the next president is, then what's the point of democracy? What's the point of Kenyans waking up at 3 a.m. to go queue if it's already been decided by a group of people?
That's one of the fruits of democracy, that you allow the majority to have their way, but you also have to allow the minority to have their say. Now, our system as a country is one that we adopt different, I many times call it a mixed form of democracy, where you have either parliamentary or presidential systems. But as it is right now, I think our constitution clearly states what sort of system we have. All these talks that are going on is really out of personal selfish interests. And that is why I would say, for instance, that the deputy president suddenly has, within the last 2 days, has changed even his tune and tone with regards to the 2022 elections, and particularly the referendum question. And he said, okay, we are going to support a referendum that is really for Prime Minister. So you can definitely tell that the gentleman is slowly moving, because at home, I was telling people that when you see the vice chair of the ruling party speaking, and then
it comes with power.
2 days after that, the president says, musinisukume kwa mambo ya 2022, sababu hatujafika hapo, na tukifika mimi nitaongea. And on the other hand, his deputy is busy drumming up. Then you can definitely tell that this gentleman is speaking for the other person.
The president also himself came out and said that whoever he chooses to succeed him will be a shocker.
Yeah, so many people. So it definitely tells you that within his table of cards, the deputy president, in my view, and I wouldn't want to talk politics now, but you asked a political question, so allow me to respond politically. I don't think that the deputy president is the eyeball of His Excellency the President, especially with regards to his successor. Right. And so the third thing which I think we need to allow to work, since in my view, is a handshake. You know, that the two gentlemen March last year moved in to shake hands, and Kenyans were calling upon them to talk to each other. I remember writing so many articles which were published by your paper, and we sat here with very many analysts asking His Excellency the President and the former Prime Minister to meet and shake hands. They shook hands. And on 9th of March, they came up and did a Gazette notice, which is a 9-point agenda of the Building Bridges to Unity initiative. I think that Kenyans need to come forward and support this initiative. Yes, it has been rubbished as something that is just a two-gentlemen's agreement. I sometimes think it really is, but I think it gives Kenyans an opportunity now to move forward and reclaim our country and say, if they say that they are committed to corruption, then my role as a Kenyan is going to be A, B, C, and D. If they are talking about electoral reforms, which really is going to be the talk of, I think is going to be the talk of 2019, IEBC issues and all those reforms that we are looking forward to, extrajudicial killings within the police and the National Police Service Commission. I think the commissioner's term already expired. The IG's term is coming to a close. The Auditor General's term is coming to an end. So there are lots of things that are going to be, you know, a lot
of change we'll see.
Indeed. So I think that in all these issues, Kenyans need to take the handshake as an opportunity to look at what is my role in using this to be able to build a better Kenya, including even auditing what the politicians are saying on TV and what they are printing on paper, so that every quarter we ask them, Your Excellency, the Mheshimiwa President, this is what you said. How come now you've changed it like this? Then they will see the vigilance of Kenyans, and they'll begin to do things, I would say, in a proper manner.
Accountability. I hear you. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Shukran.
Kevin Osido, he is a governance expert, just giving us an overview and helping us, taking us through press review. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we will come back with that conversation, overcoming exam failure. And we are asking you this morning whether you think education is the key to success. We'd love to hear from you, so tweet us directly. We'll be right back.